You know, this game's been out for like, what, 4 years now, and there are still people doing this. Like, are you trying to lose? Welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about how, man, I hate Gold Experience Requiem. Seriously, this stand is so lame, so just ass backwards now, and it's been nerfed and changed so many times that I don't even think that the people that have made these changes know what they want this to be anymore. And despite that, because the stand is still quote-unquote good, which in fairness, I guess it is, well, we're sort of stuck with it right now, and that's a real shame. Now, to be 100% fair, there are a lot of things that have been changed over the years with Gold Experience Requiem that have made it significantly more fun on both ends, whether you're fighting against it or using it yourself. I mean, for God's sakes, it used to be that if you landed the counter, the person lost their stand on top of it being significantly longer, basically meaning that if you got countered a single time, you died. That was just it. It used to be that return to zero was an evasive that you could use in stun, meaning the second that you got a combo at all against a Gold Experience Requiem player, they just pushed the key on the keyboard and congratulations, you don't have your combo anymore. And of course, it used to be that the Life Beam of Creation used to have literally zero end lag, so you could do the infamous Scorpion Barrage. All those things have since been patched out and the game is better for it, but unfortunately, as this stand has been nerfed over and over and over and over again, seemingly nothing has been done to sort of make up for those nerfs or make sure that it's still fun to play after the fact. And so now we're sort of left with this extremely lame stand that's still technically good and people still use, but, well, it isn't any fun and it's just borderline confusing for anyone who might pick it up for the first time. What do I mean by this? Well, let's start with the most elephant in the room move in my opinion, and that's Summon Life Form. This move has been changed around and butchered to the point of unrecognizability. Seriously, look at this, and with absolutely no context, could you tell me what's going on here? It's called Summon Life Form. So, where's the life form? As some of you OG players may know, this move used to summon an eagle that went towards your opponent and hit them, and that's how they took damage. Nowadays, though, well, I don't know what the hell's going on here. They should have called it Summon Green Particle Effects, because that's all that's happening. Seriously, you pull rocks up out of the floor, and then go gadget green particle. I don't get it. Either way, Summon Life Forms is a cancelable, blockable projectile that you need to stand perfectly still in order to use and has a ton of windup, on top of having no range. Alright, seriously, what the fuck is going on here? The biggest confusing factor to me is hands down the amount of range that this move has. Why does somebody need to be borderline right next to you in order for this to work when it's cancelable and blockable? This is a M1 focused game where people are constantly throwing attacks at each other. If you so much as attempt to use this anywhere near your opponent in any neutral exchange, it will get canceled. It just will. There's no way it doesn't. And even on the offset that they don't cancel it, they can just block it for free. So, why is this here again? Oh, but Eclipse, it does 40-something damage. So, you know, if you can land it, big damage. All right, well, you can't land it, so that doesn't matter. And to top all of this nonsense off, it has, like, a shitload of knockback, despite not being a ragdoll move. I have no idea why this move has had so much knockback for as long as it has because, well, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it causes this bug. If you counter somebody and then use this straight away, because it knocks them back, they'll get knocked back. But because when you do the counter, they're stuck in this specific animation, on your screen, they'll still be here. And then when the counter ends, they teleport to where they've been knocked back from. This is a bug that's been around. Oh, yes, literally forever. Everyone who's been around knows this is a thing. And it could be solved by removing the knockback from this move. But that hasn't happened because I don't know why. I don't know why that hasn't happened, but it hasn't. There's so many things they could do here. Maybe make Summon Life Form actually summon a life form. That's a start. Or you could just rename it to Summon Green Particles. Honestly, wouldn't be opposed, because that would be accurate. They could make this a block-breaking move, you know, considering the fact that it's cancelable and the fact that it has no range. Maybe that would help. Or they could make it so that way it actually has range and you can use it from further away. I mean, sure, it's still pretty much useless and you can block it, but at least it won't do absolutely nothing. So many options, but as it stands right now, well, it's just a piece of shit. The next big move problem when it comes to GER, I would definitely say, is the life beam. This thing is a mess, and it almost sort of has been a mess. In fairness, it's a cool move. It's a hit scan laser move where if you directly hit the person, it deals, I believe, 30 damage, and if you don't directly hit them, it deals like 50 something if you manage to land all of the scorpions. Now, those scorpions go directly towards the opponent without any sort of predictive factors or aim assist or tracking or anything, which means that if you do try to shoot it to the ground and the enemy literally moves 2 steps to the right, you deal 0 damage. But really, that's a secondary function of the move. For the most part, you want to either directly hit the person or use that ground strike while they're stunned or parried or what have you. So I don't have a problem with the fact that you can miss all of the scorpions every single time. What I do have a problem with is the fact that this move has no range. So this might be a surprise to people who solely dwell in the 1v1s arena, because in the 1v1s arena, this really isn't that much of a problem. None of the 1v1s maps are really big enough for this to become a problem. But where it is an issue is main game. Main game has these massive open areas, and if you have someone further away or someone on top of a rooftop, you name it, and you try to shoot them with the life beam, well, here's what happens. Wait, what happened? Oh, I'll tell you what happened. Nothing happened. So not only does your life beam literally not spawn at all, there is no indication other than the sound effect that you even fired it if it's out of range, but also the range is pitiful. If someone's running away from me, running down the street, well, there's no guarantee that my life beam is even going to reach them. I don't know what the logic was here on making the range so small. I have to assume that they just sort of threw some numbers in there and they were like, yeah, that's probably good enough, and because a lot of the staff and such don't actually play the main game, well, I guess they never really noticed? Maybe? That's my best guess. And that's all not even taking consideration to the fact that half the time the life beam, even when directly shot somewhere where it should work, just doesn't work. I mean, look at this. Where did it go? Where is it? It's gone. It has been removed from existence. Overall, the life beam is a head scratcher. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and the range, well, it's just ass. Next point of contention that I want to talk about, and yeah, it's the counter. This thing is so unbelievably lame. It has always been so unbelievably lame. And if Paragon gets his way, it's going to continue being so unbelievably lame, and also being significantly more ass than it was before. Now, you see, the counter used to have a really long time where it was active for, and then, when it wasn't active anymore, it also used to have a pretty fair amount of time that you could punish it. Nowadays, I don't know why, they removed a ton of the active time and a ton of the end lag, which means that you can basically just chuck this out, and 80 to 90% of the time, even if you fail, the enemy won't punish it at all. I don't know if the people behind YBA know this, so I'm gonna tell them just in case they don't. But having a counter last longer is actually a bad thing. The longer that your counter is active for, the more time that the opponent who potentially baited or just missed an attack gets to realize that you're using a counter and mentally or physically prepare themselves to counterattack you failing the counter. There's a very good reason that all of the good Seamoon players never buy the counter duration upgrades, because you use the counter to counter an attack, and then if it doesn't work, you want as little time that you can be punished as possible. But I think that they thought that they were nerfing the counter by reducing its active time, when they actually just straight up buffed it. Either way, the problem with the counter is extremely clear and extremely obvious, and it lends itself to the rest of the stand, which has moves that are so generally difficult to land, except for if you land the counter, which means you land them for free. Basically, as it stands, Gold Experience Requiem has a borderline risk-free counter where if you land it, you do like over 60, 70 damage. You're effectively guaranteed to land the Scorpions, which does over 50. Then you can land some sort of combo extender after the fact, assuming you're fast enough, and then land a few M1s. In theory and in practice, you can roughly wipe out half somebody's health with a single counter, and the odds of them being able to do the same if you whiff the counter is next to 0. Now, do you make the counter duration longer? Do you increase the end lag? Do you decrease the stun time yet again so it can't confirm all of this stuff and you can only get a few M1s? I don't know. And in truth, if you did that, we'd probably see an even less fun to play stand because trying to land any moves without the counter is such a bitch. The issue here is that basically in its entire design, GER is just, well, lame. And then the final problem with this stand, the elephant in the room, return to 0. This move has been nerfed and nerfed and nerfed some more, and at this point, well, some of the nerfs just don't make any sense anymore because I think the reasons that they nerfed them to begin with no longer make sense. I already mentioned the fact that return to 0 being an evasive was stupid, and the fact that they took it away was a good thing. What I didn't mention was the fact that using return to 0 now puts your barrage on cooldown because it does. I don't know why, but because it does. Now, I want you to understand that when you use return to 0, not only does it stop you in place completely, you are entirely frozen in place, but also it has end lag on the move. So it's not like you can just hit return to 0 and then immediately barrage. That doesn't work. You can't do that. Or at least you couldn't do that. But despite knowing that you couldn't do that, they added a cooldown anyway, which blocks you from doing it. Never mind the fact that despite this move no longer being an evasive, it's still technically cancelable on startup. Yeah, if somebody hits you while you're starting up the move, it won't desummon anyone's stands, it won't cancel any of these people's abilities. Like, why is this even still here? It's not like this is an extremely high destructive power stand, and it's not like it has any fantastic follow-ups after barrage anyway, so all this does is arbitrarily block you out of using a move because, reasons. I really don't know why. Now, return to 0 is pretty cool in that it's effectively also an off button for a lot of the ultimate moves in the game. Whether you're trying to time erase with King Crimson or time stop with any of the time stop stands, if you're stupid enough to do that against GER, well, you're in for a world of hurt. A world of buggy hurt, but a world of hurt nonetheless. That's to say that's because this cutscene is still bugged. So if you try to use one of these moves and you get hit by GER, you'll get put in this cutscene you're seeing here. The thing is that while in the cutscene, towards the end of it, the last 2 or 3 seconds or so, you're able to act again before you can see your character. If this is by design, this is the most confusing decision on the planet. And if this isn't by design, it's been here literally forever. But to be perfectly honest, that's not the biggest problem with Return to 0. The biggest problem with Return to 0 is the way that it functions in teams, 2v2s, main game, etc. Because the way people use this move for the most part is not to cancel other people's time stops and then kill them for it. No, it's to use their teammates' time stops, which they then cancel and use that to insta-kill people, which is the dumbest thing on the history of the planet, and I don't know how it's never been addressed. So what I haven't mentioned up until now is that if you get time stopped by somebody else, and then a GER returns to 0 near you, you also get stuck in the cutscene. What were they thinking? If you get stuck in the Return to 0 cutscene, you take like 170 damage plus. I'm not kidding. The account here has 163 HP and no damage resistance, and I can't even check how much the RTZ combo actually does to them because they just straight up die before I can get there. And with the introduction of Shadow the World, a stand that has a 30-second time stop, something that I believe is getting patched, but regardless, comes out basically instantly, well, you have the Shadow the World player pop the time stop, RTZ it, and there's no counterplay, you just instantly die. Fucking awesome. Oh, but wait, there's more. Not only does RTZ screw over people who didn't even use the move, it also has a pitiful range limit, which means that if someone time stops you from further away and then you return to 0, you can return to 0 someone else's time stop without even return to 0ing the guy who used it. What the fuck? So, in the world of 2v2s in main game, you can have someone run further away from you, time stop someone far away, and then use the return to zero, allowing the person who used the time stop to kill somebody with it, and you to kill somebody completely uninvolved. Why on God's green earth does this not just take everybody out of the time stop and cutscene the guy who used the time stop? I don't know. But as it stands right now, it is just incredibly stupid. There's no way around it. It's cheese, it's dumb, it shouldn't be here, and it borderline ruins modes like 2v2s with this stand running rampant with time stop stands, making matchups basically unplayable the second you match into them. If you're not using GER, you're fucked. So to do a quick recap, GER has a bunch of moves that are impossible to land unless you land a counter, and is effectively a cheese stand that requires getting 2 or 3 openings in order to win, and if you don't do that, then you just don't win. But if you do, you win by default. Problems honestly stem from a serious lack of consistency outside of landing an RTZ or a counter. And so honestly, in a perfect world, we nerf the counter, we nerf RTZ, and we make the rest of the kit more consistent. But that's not really the world we live in. After all, Life Beam got its wind-up increased, making it even harder to use and less consistent, on top of, well, not working. And Summon Life Form is just a fucking terrible move, leaving us with Tree Creation as really the only move that Gold Experience Requiem has that's just good. Well, offensive moves anyway. Obviously the heal is still very good. Overall, this stand is just a mess. And I already know I'm gonna get comments from the sweaty, like, competitive guys, and they're gonna be like, "You could stop complaining about GER, it's really good, and I don't want them to make it overpowered." But it's fucking boring, guys, don't you see that? Not only is it boring, but it doesn't work. I mean, at the very least this time, I didn't have to complain about it having less destructive power than Gold Experience. That was stupid. And I also don't really need to complain about murder mode anymore because they actually made it pretty balanced. Now, instead of Awakening basically being the only thing that makes the stand usable, giving you a speed buff, a ridiculous damage increase, a ridiculous damage reduction, and just sort of turning you into the Terminator, it makes your damage do true damage instead of a damage increase, which I think is a much better and well-rounded trade-off. It's still really, really good, it's fun to use, but it's not just an instant kill win button. Well, it is an instant kill win button when you awaken after your teammate shows up and you return to zero, their time stops screwing everyone else over, but yeah, whatever, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Overall, this stand's a mess, it needs help, it's boring to play, it's boring to fight, they've got to do something. Either way, I'm wrapping up here, so if you enjoyed the video, you've got things to say, you can of course leave them in the comments and such. If you didn't enjoy the video, you can dislike the video, don't leave a comment, you know, that kind of stuff. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.